Alrighty, welcome. This is going to be module 2. This is going to be lecture 4. And this one, we're going to be talking about what is referred to as file descriptors. And so a lot of times I think we're talking about, you're going to hear this a lot. You're going to see the term, sometimes you'll see it as FD. And that's going to be stand for file descriptors. So this is going to be file descriptors. So file descriptors, and those are going to be FD, okay? So what these descriptors are is they are an indicator of connections maintained by the kernel to perform input and output operations. So what we mean by that is that there are 3 different types. The first one is going to be standard input, which is going to be what we type here on the keyboard, or when we move the mouse. All of that is considered standard input. The next part is going to be standard output. So if I type J on the keyboard, the output is going to be J being posted on the terminal screen. And the error messages are whenever I do something that doesn't actually go ahead and complete properly, it gives me an error message, okay? So these are going to be referred to as, you're going to have standard in, and this is going to be represented by the numerical number 0, okay? Then you also have standard out, which is going to be represented by a numerical number of 1. It's a little bit bigger, okay? And lastly, that other one I was talking about, the standard errors, these are represented by the numerical number of 2. Now, these right here, they don't seem too important just yet, but they'll make a little bit more sense as we move along. We talked about it a little bit in the previous lecture. We're doing the find and the locate. And I mentioned that I was using the number 2, and you remember I had typed in 2 over here. I typed in 2, and then I used the greater than sign to go ahead and signify that I'm going to go ahead and redirect. Okay, I'm going to redirect to this information right here. So that's how we actually go ahead and we did that in the last one. So we're going to go in a little bit more in depth. So let's go ahead and do this. I want to do, okay, let's go ahead and make sure. So let's go ahead and we're going to work with a file that we have access to. Okay, we're going to work with the Etsy password file. Now, again, if you don't remember where to find it, we can actually go ahead and look for find. We're going to go ahead and type in, we're going to start at root, okay? And we're going to look for the name that actually has password. Okay, so notice right here, I get a lot of errors, these permission denied, right? Permission denied. I want to go ahead and I want to trim off this gobbledygook. These are my errors, permission denied. So we're going to use what we know so far. We're going to kind of touch about redirection on how to redirect these error messages. So that way it kind of cleans up the screen a little bit and I can actually find what I'm looking for, okay? So we're going to use this information that we know here to, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and redirect these. And the way I'm going to type this, I'm going to type this like this. So my standard errors, okay? I'm going to redirect them. That's what the greater than sign is. Just 1, okay? And we'll talk about 2 in a second. Okay, I'm going to use 1 greater than sign. I'm going to redirect it to dev null. Now, what is this dev null in particular? So this actually is basically, it doesn't get printed to the screen. This right here is going to go ahead and be exactly what we're looking for in regards to basically, hey, send all these error messages that I'm going to get, send them to this actual location. That way I don't have to read them. So now I'm going to do the same thing again, but now I'm going to go ahead and type in, again, my command to redirect. So I'm going to send my standard errors over to /dev/null. Let's see what happens. All right, so automatically we have a huge difference in what we had before. So let's go ahead and actually look at what we had before. So this is where I ran the command at the very beginning. I'm gonna move all the way up. Yeah, it was a lot. So I ran this right here. Hey, look through root, and I want you to find all the files that have the name password, and it's spelled just like this in it. So it's going through all these, and it's like, hey, I found all this stuff, but I can't get access to it because I don't have access to it. Those are all the denied, okay? So when I went ahead and actually did, like I said, I redirected all these error messages, permission denied. I redirected them to a file called dev null. It's like that way I don't have to see them. And notice what happened. It really changes the outlook of that command being run, okay? So we can actually go ahead and take this information and we can take this a little bit step further and we can redirect this over to a file now. Now, one of the cool things about redirection to a file is that when you redirect to a file, if the file doesn't exist, it's going to create it automatically. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you right now, ls, okay? So notice right here, I'm going to go ahead and title this results.txt. I just wanted to show you that I don't have anything called results.txt. So we're going to run the same command again, but instead of running it to the dev null, okay, we're going to go ahead and run it to dev null. And then at the same time, we're going to write that information to results.txt. So what's going to happen here? So it's going to find all the information under the root directory with the name having password in it. Okay, any file, any directory, right? And then I'm going to say, hey, send all those error messages to dev null, and then send the actual results to a file called results.txt. And let's see what that looks like. All right. We're like, well, how come I didn't get anything back? Last time I got this. I got this information here last time I ran it, but what happened? Well, we took the output, which was this right here, the highlighted, and we said, hey, I don't want you to display it to me, just put it in this file. So let's see what happens. I should be able to see, okay, there's a results.txt file. So let's actually cap that file and let's see what it looks like. There's our results right there. So we can see that we can use this actual file descriptors and redirection to help us go ahead and also write stuff to a file. Now, again, remember, I said that file didn't exist. So it created the file for me, and then it went ahead and actually created even more. So let's go ahead and see what happens. Let's go ahead and take it a step further. So now if we can write stuff to the results or the output to a file, we can do the same thing with the actual error messages. So we're going to send this over to a file called, this is going to be called standard error.txt. So what's going to happen here? Well, let's go ahead and talk about this real quick. I'm going to go ahead and discuss an operand situation. So we know that this is going to go ahead and write to a file the error messages right here to the error messages to a file called standard error.txt. Okay. And then we're taking the output, and then I want you to go ahead and write that out to a file called results.txt. Now, the file already exists. So here's what's going to, so the question becomes, well, what's going to happen to this right here? It's already in the file. Well, there's two ways to look at this. If you see a single, okay, a single greater than sign, this means we're going to go ahead and redirect or write, all right? But it also has another term. This also overwrites what's in that actual file, okay? So how does this work for us? Well, if I don't want to overwrite it, right, I can actually go ahead and type double greater than signs. So you have two of them now that are actually going this way and saying, hey, this actually signifies append the results to the previous one. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and we'll do one first, and then we'll do the other. Okay, So in this one, we're going to call this, instead of doing results, we're going to call this standard out. Okay. So again, it's going to create two files, standard error and standard out. Cool. Now let's go ahead and look for them. So you notice I have a standard error and a standard out. Awesome. So if I cat the standard error, you're going to notice that all those permission denies are in there. Okay. So again, I can go ahead and do a cat on standard out. And there you go. That's actually the output that I had before in the results.txt. Now, as I said before, if I do 1, this signifies that I'm going to go ahead and overwrite or write to a file, okay? If I do 2 of them now, I'm going to go ahead and actually do 2 of them. This one, if I get 2 of them in a row, just like this means we're going to append, okay? We're going to append to that. So let's go ahead and append our output to this file right here, right? Okay, so now what we should see is we're going to use this information, then go ahead and see how this works. Let's go ahead and do a cat. Let's do an ls real quick, or an ls tag l, just so we're, okay. Standard out. All right, let's go ahead and actually do a cat of standard out. Now notice we start off with sys, fs, se class password, and then it repeats itself again. It actually appended to this document. So it actually took the previous document and said, hey, write this information, but don't overwrite it. I want you to go ahead and append it to this document so that way you can keep a running tab, basically, information. So that's how we actually can go ahead and achieve so we have, again, we have this one right here. So we have this idea of this one, and that's going to be the greater than sign. And I'm going to go ahead and change this color real quick just so y'all can see. Change to red. So the greater than sign equals write, redirect, overwrite. Okay. So those are the kind of things you need to get into perspective. When you see one of them, you're going to go ahead and know that that means we're going to be writing or redirecting or overwriting. Okay. And I don't like the word redirect. Okay. I don't like the word redirect at all, and then I'll explain why when we talk about the next one, which is going to be pipes. So if we see 2 of them, this one equals write, but append. So we're going to write, but we're not just going to write, we're going to append to the document. Whereas the previous one says we're going to overwrite. Okay. So that's how we go ahead and do redirection, file descriptors, dealing with that. So the next thing we're going to talk about is a thing called pipes. I'm going to go ahead and real quickly, I'm going to circle all this. I'm going to delete it all. Okay. Come on. That was so difficult. Oh, well, I'm just going to toss that to the side. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is something called, and they're very helpful, and it's called pipes. Okay. So pipes are exactly like they are described. We use them when we want to go ahead and use the standard out from one command or program and then send it to another one, okay? And one of the most common ways we're going to see this is we're going to use this in things such as grep, okay? So this is going to actually be a short form for grab expression, okay? So we're going to grep it, okay? And that's going to be how we can use this information to find details we need. So let's go ahead and get an idea here. So we're going to build on what we talked about with that before. We talked about find. We're going to do that same thing again. We're going to go ahead and look for anything that has a a .conf, okay, ending, and we're gonna go ahead and put the splat, so that way we can get anything in the front, doesn't matter what it is, as long as it has .conf, ends in .conf, we'll find it. And then we're gonna use this command called grep. So grep is actually a command that's used to go ahead and filter based off of a defined pattern. Now, grep has also got a more advanced version, and this one's actually called egrep. And if you go ahead and we can do a grep tac help, and as you can see right here, it's got a lot of robust stuff. So you can see search for patterns in each file. Okay, we have that one, and then we can go ahead and do egrep tac help, and let's see what this one says. Let's see if there's a difference. So we're looking at here egrep, search for pattern in each file. Well, what is the difference? Well, egrep allows you to go ahead and query for basically for regular expressions. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in the beginning, a little bit more later on. But regular expressions are like how we go ahead and like we talk about them. We can go ahead and look for the specific things we're looking for in regards to like quotation marks, the pound signs. We can add those regular expressions in there to be able to actually look for them. If not, we are actually accustomed to just using basic patterns. So notice the difference here. So pattern selection, we have tac capital E. Notice this pattern is an extended regular expression. But let's go ahead and look at how it is actually done over here. So again, the same thing, tac E, tac F, tac G. So again, one is for extended, one is a regular grep. And they all both serve a purpose. I would say go ahead and get familiar with using egrep because it's going to be very helpful, but we're going to be using grep for this example. Okay, so we're going to be using this one for this example. And also for like their assignments or thing, you'll go ahead and just have to know grep. Okay. All right, let's go and get started. All right, so we're going to actually play with this. I'm going to clear my screen real quick just so I can get rid of all the gobbledygook. So we're going to find all, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and find, we want to find within /Etsy, okay? Within the Etsy domain, or within the Etsy directory, any file that has a name that ends in .conf, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. So in the Etsy directory, we're going to find any file as long as the name ends in .conf, okay? Now, we know we're going to get some errors. That's going to happen. We're still student, we're not root, so we're not going to be able to access everything. So I'm going to go ahead and take my standard errors, I'm going to redirect them to dev null, like I did before. Now, this is where the pipes come into play. The pipe is going to be this little line right here. And if you don't know where that line is on the keyboard, it's right above the enter key and below the backspace. So to get that line, you hit the shift key and you get the pipe, okay? So this is what this is saying is telling the kernel, hey, run this command, and once you're done with it, take that output, and then I want you to use it for this command, all right? So now we're gonna do a grep. So we're gonna grep this, and when we grep it, we're gonna grep for a specific pattern. And the pattern we're gonna be looking for is gonna be called system D, okay? So we don't have to give it any type of flags, just look for system D. So let's go ahead and look and see how this works, right? Well, we didn't get anything. Well, what happened? Well, probably more than likely, we don't have access to this. So let's go ahead and actually see about doing a sudo. And we got nothing in return. So what does that mean? Well, that means that we couldn't find anything called system D. But let's go ahead and actually go ahead and see if we find sys. Oh, let me. There we go. I don't want the. So let's go ahead and do sys. So notice I actually have one in sys, that's sysinfo.sys. .sh. And then I have this one right here, sysinfo copy. Now, notice that it's actually going to be in these right here. So we found sys, and then this follows anything after this in these files. So let's actually go and see. Let's break this down. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to back this up real quick. Here's my host.conf file. I can go ahead and cat the host.conf file. So it's multi-on, okay. And then let's see here. I want to go ahead and make sure that I'm getting what I need to in return. All right, sorry, I had to go ahead and take a look at some information here. So I had to tweak the command just a little bit because of the fact that I wasn't getting what I want, and I want to make sure that you get a better understanding of how this works. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and do the find Etsy, but instead of .conf, I'm going to go ahead and do something a little bit different. Instead of name, with the name, I'm going to go ahead and actually do a another one, which is going to be network. Okay. So once I do the network command, I want you to go ahead and just kind of see what happens. I'm not going to do the grep just yet. Notice I get 2 scripts, okay? So that's my output. So then I'm going to go ahead and actually now I'm going to do the pipe. So I'm going to say, hey, take that output, and I want you to find wherever there's the term, let's go ahead and pick one. Let's do VMware. And notice what happened. It pulled out only this one. And also notice what else happened. It highlighted the word in red. And I know it's going to be, if you are colorblind, it's going to be very difficult to see that. But you can see right here that this has a different actual color than my other one. So when I'm looking for that, so I can go ahead and change it. I'll change it from VMware. Let's change it to Etsy. So notice the highlighted Etsy. So it's finding in the output, find where this occurs, and then we actually get to see that. So if we go back to my original one, let's go ahead and actually, let's see what happens if I put something in there that doesn't exist. So let's go ahead and let's actually misspell network. Notice it returns nothing. Therefore, there's nothing there. Now, one of the cool things is too, is not only can we go ahead and do, I'm going to do sysconfig. Well, actually, I'm going to do VMware, right? But then I can do what's called a pipe chain. So I'm going to say, okay, cool. Now take that output, and then I'm going to use another command called WC. This stands for word count. And just so I am, so I'm going to do tac help. I want you to print me out the lines, tell you the new line count. Okay, so I'm going to do a tac L. So let's go ahead and actually do this right here. We're looking for VMware, and I'm going to go ahead and take the output again and say, hey, once I go ahead and get the output, let's go ahead and do a word count tac L. And notice it says there's one line. That means there's one actual result. So we go back to this. We did a query, okay, for find in the Etsy directory, any folder or a directory that has the name network in it. Take the error messages, and we're going to redirect those over to our dev null. Once we get that, once that finishes, take the output. I want to pull out all the results that have VMware in the name, right? And then once we get that, I want you to give me the number of results that happen per line. Therefore, there's one unique answer, okay? So this is a really cool way we can go ahead and do some chaining and get an idea of how to go ahead and do appending, redirections. We can go ahead and use this information for to go ahead and make sure we clean up our actual space so we can actually look what we're looking for. It's really helpful in this kind of regard and everything. And in the project, you'll get some practice with this and how to go ahead and do it. So, but that's all I have for you on file descriptors. If you have any questions, please message me on either the message boards or through Canvas. And with that said, there's only 2 more videos left for this section. One is going to be, the next one's going to be on how to go ahead and do some of the pagers. And then the last one's going to be troubleshooting. And then we'll go ahead and go from there. If you don't have any questions or anything else, you can continue forward. If not, you'll have a great day. I'll see you in the next video.